Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everybody.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
From Mexico.
From Mexico. We, happy Monday. I hope y'all had a good weekend. We just are coming off of the LHPH summit, and as we were getting ready to leave, everyone's like, where are you going? And we said, well, it's kind of a coin toss. And so Bill Elizondo pulls out a coin, and he's like, what's heads and what's tails? And we said, north is heads, south is tails. He flipped the coin and it said south. So we're in Ensenada, Mexico. Just came out for a couple of days to enjoy a little bit of Mexico for just a minute. And
had our passports, which turned out we didn't need. I probably shouldn't say that, but we didn't need them in our case.
No one checked them. Yeah, no one even asked for one at all. So
they did ask, what's the big suitcase?
Yeah, we had all of our gear in this massive hard case that we travel with.
We're podcasters, and they're like, sure you are. Pull over there.
Yeah, we did get pulled over, and so they could look through some stuff, and the person that we were working with didn't speak much English at all, and so I tried to explain to him, lighting.
Right. I'm looking forward. Today we drive back north. It'll be interesting to see as we go through the checkpoint on the way back north to see how that experience is. But anyway, we good
ceviche and
I was had a nice time here. So nice. Just a little bit of a break. And one of the nice things about all the travel, and you build up some points and you're able to stretch your stay a little bit. So it's been fun. Yeah, but for today we wanted to kind of recap the event and some of the things that we learned. We had a chance to chat with some of the most successful people in our industry.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Some real powerhouses.
Yeah. And so but I got to say, one of the big takeaways, and I said this in our wrap up session, we went around the room and we had Tim Lawrence, the CEO at LHPH Capital, who was, kind of moderating the final wrap up session. He asked us to take 7 minutes and jot down takeaways from the event. And that was an interesting experience for me, a good exercise to kind of, go through the things like what were the big lessons, So today was partly about that. It's certainly about, what it looks like to be successful. One of the things that we're seeing, we had a chance to talk to very successful people. Some of them we know their success story from before this event, and then got a chance to sit, which, by the way, you're going to want to find those sessions that we did, especially the ones with dealers.
And they'll be through all of our social media channels, the recordings.
Yeah, you'll find that stuff. Yeah, so we did, of course, live with Dan Grosvenor out of Missouri. We had Stan Summerall out of Mississippi and other states. It was really rich conversations, and so I would invite you to find.
So those were the dealers that we talked to. We also talked to Steve Levine,
right?
And we talked to Chad Martin and JP Bryan,
right?
And then we also had an opportunity to sit down with Terry Bowdler for about a half an hour and just talk to him about his journey to where he was at. And sometime in the future, we'll share some of that with y'all, because it was a really, really beautiful and rich conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, just these events, you over dinner, you get a chance to chat with other people, industry people, and get their perspective. But I would say, when I think through the big takeaways from this event, we heard a lot of people talk about success and what that looks like. And one of the themes that kept coming out of that for me is this whole idea of the customer relationship and the customer success. We heard that without us inviting that.
And that's our shtick. That's that's kind of the thing that we focus on, is that being better to your customer actually translates to having a better business. And it's good for business to be better to your customer. Well, we didn't have to lead anybody into that kind of and that was the takeaway.
Yeah, it's really clear when you talk to some of the most successful dealers. One of the things that separates them, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that they do think long term. They do, because we asked some of them specifically, like, what advice would you be giving to
Yeah.
people who are new
Mhm.
to the business? And even you're talking about people with $80 million
Mhm.
portfolios, and their attitude is, the success of the customer, right?
Mhm.
And
And it's the long term.
yeah,
The long game. I
yeah,
mean, and that was some of the vernacular that was used, is the long
sure,
game. It's like,
absolutely.
this is something that is 10, 15, 20 years relationship. Is that's what they're fostering, is that kind of a relationship with people. When we were talking to Stan, I think, wasn't it that he was talking about one of his customers had come in and had an over 800 credit,
Oh yeah,
and still, because they had improved their credit, and that's something that Stan kind of helps with, is improving their credit. They still wanted to buy from them and not the dealer across the street that was a franchise dealer, because they're like, we don't want to deal with the bank, we want to deal with you,
yeah.
because they know how he treats the customers.
Yeah, and so that's a kind of a key part here. We
Mhm.
also, on the time we spent with Dan Grosvenor, he went through a little illustration using $100 bill,
Oh
and
yeah.
we had hoped to pull the clip together to share with you, but I would say just find that broadcast that we did with
Mhm.
Dan over the on Friday, and he
Yeah.
talks about that. It's just you can talk about the customer experience and making the customer experience something, and it's a little different if you're a Hilton hotel and you're trying to create a customer experience for your guests. That's one thing. In our industry, it's a little different thing. It's a more
Mhm.
lasting,
Mhm.
and so it's going to tie into culture, right? It's going to
Yeah.
tie into all
Oh
those
my goodness,
things. Yeah.
culture. One of the preface to that, that his description of what he has done with his team, with this $100 bill, it was with the sales team, and that he was hearing from the sales team, these people, and that the sales team in themselves were starting to classify and label
Mhm.
the customers that we have.
Right.
And so if you get a chance to look at that, it is really, really powerful. And how he took them through this process of $100 bill, and how well it spends when it's crisp and clean, and how well it spends when it is crumpled and stamped on and has coffee dropped on it.
It still has value.
It spends exactly the same.
Right.
It's just not as pretty, but it
Yeah.
spends exactly the same.
And one of the other things I spoke up about as a takeaway for me, because after we sat with so many
Mhm.
people on Friday
Mhm.
and had a chance to hear their stories, one of the things that is uh, not necessarily a common thread through all of them, but certainly it's a widespread thing that you run into, where some of the folks that you meet that are highly successful
Mhm.
have also been through periods of really
Oh,
difficult
yeah.
hardship. Like they've been
Yeah.
through some really difficult, down to their last dollar kind of scenarios. And so you begin to think about that in terms of
Mhm.
what that looks like for you if you're at a stage of your career, your business, where it's a struggle. Just remember, you're not alone. And it doesn't mean, like,
Mhm.
one of the things that we saw is clearly some of these people that are highly successful now, whatever measure you would use, most of us would consider them highly
Mhm.
successful in our segment. And they've been through some difficult stuff. So I just think
Mhm.
it's important for us to keep that in perspective,
Absolutely.
continue to play the long game. And I think the big takeaway for me was, the common takeaway was, those
Mhm.
dealers who are very customer minded,
Mhm.
have the customer success in mind.
Mhm.
Those tend to be the ones that are playing the long game. That's what
Mhm.
they encourage others to consider as they step into the business. And some of them spoke very specifically about that. Is if you're just thinking short-sighted and you're really just in it for the money, it's
It's
not.
not sustainable in the
And
way
it's
that,
it's right.
yeah.
It's
I love that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
no.
interrupt you. One of the things that Stan mentioned is that because he's been so customer centric, that he can go to any grocery store, fast food, convenience, whatever, and he is not keeping his head down so he doesn't run into any of his customers, that he's just that he is considered an asset to his community, and that he feels like he sleeps well at night, and he also can be out on the floor in the community and not be not keeping his head down so no one notices that this is Stan, the guy that owns the Buy Here Pay Here down the street.
Yeah, and Dan Grosvenor also used the expression about sleeping well at night. And I would say that, by the way, that asset to the community is our terminology. That's not what Stan said about himself. Like that's the way we see it based on the way he described it. But yeah, I would say that to me, those were the big takeaways, and that's not new territory for us. We obviously spend a lot of time talking about that. It was just really great affirmation for those who are newer to the industry, or maybe considering stepping into the Buy Here Pay Here, Lace Here Pay Here space. When you think about that, if you really just don't have a heart for your customer, then maybe this isn't the industry for you, because it can be a really difficult. And we heard dealers talk about how it was difficult early until they kind of migrated, or managed to shift their business in a way that serves customers better and created more success for everybody. So yeah, these were kind of the big takeaways. I think for today, we'll keep it short today. And
I did want to say go back to something that you said earlier, and that was, criminy. I lost it. I think I've had, I should be taking notes. Need more coffee.
Maybe we should pause the show, go get coffee and come back.
It was in being successful and having those hardships, and each one of the people, the very, very successful, and it wasn't just Buy Here, but the business people that we talked to, when we really got into their stories and those hardships that they had at different points, where it was like, we were at the low, or I was at the low, or whatever the low is, they stuck with it, but they stuck with it and shifted what their approach was in order to be able to pull themselves out.
Right.
And so it's, you hear the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And it's like they were committed to their business, and they were committed to doing something in this arena, in this industry, and being able to serve the customers. And so they shifted in order to be able to become more viable and to be able to be, come back stronger. And that was one of the things, is that when you can hit the low and it's like, okay, we're at the low and let's start building up. It kind of reminds me of what Tommy Brandis, our friend in Pennsylvania, talks about, how when he does his underwriting, he looks at people not by their credit. He doesn't pull credit at all, but he's like, what's their story? Because if they're in a spiral down and they're like, I just lost my job, or I just got he's like, yeah, that's not a good risk. But when they're spiraling up, when they're starting to get that momentum to go up, that's when some really beautiful things can happen. And I see that happens with us in business. It happens with our customers, that it's like, let's cheer on our customers as they're spiraling up, because it's just, there's some really beautiful things that can happen if we're there to help support them. And a lot of these business owners that we talk to, they had support of different people and mentors and people that can help them to achieve the things that they wanted to be able to do and move forward. So it was pretty powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a couple other thoughts to kind of close on. Dan Grosvenor used an expression that I jokingly told him during the live. I said, I don't hear that expression very much. I'm originally from Oklahoma, and used to hear this thing about shearing sheep. When you think about what we know about sheep and how you harvest the wool from sheep, one of the expressions that used to come around Oklahoma and Texas, you would hear about, in paraphrasing, the way it was said, was sort of like, you can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin it once. So if you're thinking purely from a business standpoint, you think about this customer being with us a long time, and of course we're gonna need to earn profit in the transaction, of course. But it's like when we can think about a long-term approach, and we can just simply not skin the sheep, so to speak, then we can really have a long-term experience and a lot of longevity in this business, was the word that was used often from the other dealers. But it's that's what we want you to think about today. And I would just say what I heard in that is, yes, cost of cars up, cost of money is up. Dealers are going to have to navigate that.
Yeah.
But if we keep as a common thread the customer relationship, I think navigating the customer relationship is going to be the key to, whatever that looks like. Cost of money, all that stuff is like navigating from here to there and being in a healthy place with your business 10 years from now. I can promise you is more about customer relationship than any of those other, straight line elements. So let's make sure if we get nothing else right, let's get the customer relationship right and make sure we're able to support them.
Yeah. And I do have to say a little piece of, cost of car up and all of the things that we're working against, the things that are creating friction in our businesses. It kind of feels like we're swimming upstream. One of the things that Stan mentioned, he says, based on what he's been watching, is it feels like it's not going to go down anymore. That he's like, he felt like it's on its way. It's reached the bottom. It's on its way up. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared for being able to experience some pretty good growth in the next little bit.
And I think, many of us listening would hope that he's right about that being the bottom. We hope it's not going to be worse, but either way, it's like what we recognize is that the key to, being successful in this industry is going to be focusing on the customer, helping to make sure we create good solutions for them. And that's going to, that's obviously our lifeblood. So we got to make sure that we're able to, take good care of those folks. And then most of the rest of the things in our business will fall in place when we're taking that approach. But it's like, it was a good lesson. I would also tell you, join us one day. We'll bring the story about our experience yesterday. We went out for a little recreational outing, and the experience that we had in walking through the market and having the people present their goods to us and the techniques that they use and doing it was
those of you who've been to Mexico and gone through one of those markets know exactly what it is that we're talking about.
Some would say it's a little like a dealer walking through the expo hall at the conference.
That's what I said. But it was really interesting to see that experience through a different set of eyes, since we were just coming off of this the conference and kind of like comparing it to the experience that we give to our customers and the experience of us as vendors out there in a world of people coming through and trying to find a place to do business.
Yeah. And so there was an interesting business lesson in that. Again, we'll talk about it another day, but I think so basically it was a free attraction. I mean, it was a natural attraction, right? It's one of those, they call it La Bufadora, and it's basically one of these big geyser-like things at the ocean where the water spouts, way up high. And so it's natural, but they had created sort of a circus-like funnel that you had to go through to get to it. And so
you had no other way but to go through the gauntlet.
Yeah, so food and T-shirts and all the stuff that you would expect in that sort of a market. And so it was a really interesting business experience. And so we'll share a little bit more about that.
And there are some other things that we will be sharing. The final fireside chat.
Oh yeah.
Had some really big, which we did not broadcast, had some really good nuggets in there. And so we're going to be unpacking that a little bit, but that we figured that some of those topics belonged in a White Hat Wednesday more than they did just a regular Monday or Friday broadcast. So we'll be saving those for some White Hat Wednesdays. So you got anything else?
No, I think we can wrap up there. Bill says sometimes in those markets, it's like not trying to make eye contact. And part of the fun for me was making eye contact, and like actually interacting with the people.
Bill, there's some things about that experience that I would love to put through your lens and see if my observation is somewhat correct on that, because we had some really interesting conversations in the evening about that experience and some of the perspectives that I had on it. And Jim's like, that would be really interesting to talk to someone who actually it would have a deeper understanding about that.
Of the culture.
Of the culture.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So again, we'll bring that back on another episode. But I think, yeah, for today, we just wanted to share kind of the highlights of what we heard from these dealers.
Great conference.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about doing lease here, pay here, which is a really good option, we're seeing, depending on what your goals are with your business. But if that's something that you're thinking about doing, there were quite a few people there that were not yet in lease here, pay here, but they were there just to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great opportunity for them to be able to talk to some of those that have been in this doing lease here, pay here for a long time, and to learn more about how the process works. So, if you're thinking about it, kind of keep it on your radar for the conference next fall. We'll be talking a bit about when that comes up, because it's a really great opportunity to be able to meet with other people that have the same kind of business model, or that if you're thinking about getting into that business model, to talk to people that are vetted and seasoned in it.
Yeah, and I would say that from my perspective, on if the prognosticators are right about the future of the automotive finance industry, then leasing's only going to become more favorable.
Yeah.
So just something to be watchful about, be aware of. Just, we want everybody to be knowledgeable about that and make a good business decision for themselves.
Yeah. So take a peek. All of the recordings from the interviews that we did are living in the pages that we posted them, also on our YouTube channel. We will haven't decided yet if we're going to push those to the syndicated broadcasts because of the nature of what the conversations were. We don't know if we're gonna push them as a regular podcast. So if you're interested in listening, get on YouTube, or you can see them on the different channels. It's also going to be on the BHPH Morning Show channel and Facebook, the BHPH Nation Television Facebook page, Jim's Facebook page, and Success too. Right. It will have it.
She left out BHPH Nation TV Facebook page.
Didn't I say that?
I didn't hear you say that.
Oh, Nation TV. Okay. Yeah. Well, the BHPH
but anyway, it's
Nation.
out there. You can find it.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we will be back on Wednesday. Will we be home?
We'll be stateside. We'll be home. We'll be home. Wednesday morning.
We'll be home Wednesday morning. Yeah. So we should be back in this home studio in North Ogden, Utah on Wednesday. And so have yourselves a great rest of your day. And thanks again so much for tuning in. And we will chat with you all on Wednesday. I have no outro music. No.
You do.
No, well, I don't really. Not today. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, then bye.
Then we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks so much. Bye.